Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today. What if I told you that in the next 5 years, over 60% of the global population will comprise of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta. And that'll be over 45% of the workforce. And what if I told you that all of these people are those born post-1997? I'm going to let that sink in for a while. In a sense, what we're saying is in the next 5 years, their values, their behaviors, and their choices are going to define the global platform today. And we already see this seeping into our homes, into our communities, and into our families. So today, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a policymaker, a parent, an entrepreneur, or an innovator, understanding Gen Next, which is Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta, is not just a good to know, it is absolutely non-negotiable. We are raising children today for a future we cannot even imagine. One that is so digitally first, emotionally complex, and socially conscious. One that is in the next 10 years is going to make today's AI seem like a flip. The important question we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for this? And more importantly, are they ready for this? My name is Dr. Pallavi Chaturvedi. I'm a PhD, engineer, MBA, entrepreneur. Most importantly, I'm a mom and a millennial, absolutely intrigued and fascinated in understanding what lies ahead of us. What is Gen Next going to be like? My initiative, Get Set Parent with Pallavi, works on delving into the minds of them. How, why, and who are they going to be, and why are they going to be? Let me ask you a question. Would you equip your child with a compass to navigate a world which is powered by GPS? I'm guessing the answer is no. The end point or the destination of every generation is the same, right? To create and work towards producing youth and adults who are socially responsible, who are capable of problem solving and critical thinking. But their landscape, their environment, and their ecosystem is completely different. We need to parent children for the future and not how we were parented. And that misunderstanding is precisely what we call generation gap. Okay? So before we go into understanding the future generations, let's step back a little bit and understand how have we progressed. Let me start with the first generation called the silent generation. These were people born between 1928 and 1945. They were called the age of resilience. These were people born during the war, the epidemics, great economic depressions. Their world was about stability, getting the basic needs in place, right? Think of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, think of Ratan Tata, think of Lata Mangeshkar. They lived in a struggling world, and that's how they grew up. And then came the baby boomers, right? The baby boomers are very interesting. They're the first generation born post-Indian independence. And their challenges were completely different. Their work ethic and ethos were about nation building, about a nation-first approach, right? They grew up in a household where love came in the provision of basic food, shelter, and clothing. So all the industrialization that you see today had its foundation with the baby boomers. So if you think of people like Mr. N.R. Narayan Murthy, you think of Mr. Narendra Modi, these were people born during this generation. Then came Gen X. Gen X had the first technology seep in, right? So in India, you had the traditional joint family system, one television, and the whole family sitting and watching TV together. You had the early cassette players coming. Gen X was a little different. For the first time, they started questioning, their parents. But the approach was always a head-down approach. So if you think of people like Sachin Tendulkar, Shah Rukh Khan, all of them were people born in Gen X. And then let's come to the millennials, right? So the millennials are people born between 81 and 96. For the first time, we had a generation who decided that they had to prioritize well-being. So the millennials are most of the people that you see in the workforce today. They straddled the world between an analog world and a digital world. So they kind of grew up where dial-up networks and big desktops were had just started, and now they seamlessly have integrated into the AI world. The millennials were a very competitive lot because that was the time of intense rat race, competition, competitive exams, and today millennials feel that burnout. They also feel the disconnect between being raised by the baby boomers who weren't emotionally available for them, but at the same time, they need to be parents today for the next gen who wants to be totally connected. So me time, therapy, prioritizing self were the first time you heard in history when millennials came around, right? Now let's move to the future. This is where the future really starts, which is Gen Z. If you look at children born beyond 1997, these are human beings born with social media and smartphones integrated into their lives. They are the true tech-native generation. Gen Zs have a lot of influences over them, right? Because social media and smartphones are such a part of their lives, whether you see the role of influencers, both Indian and global, whether you see the role of OTT, whether you see the role of quick commerce and smart commerce, Gen Z almost lives online. This generation has popularly been dubbed as an employer's nightmare, or the generation which likes to micro-retire. And why is this happening? This is because for the first time, Gen Z has started questioning toxic work trends, has started questioning why they can't have a work-life balance, right? So Gen Z is the first step into our future. They're very, very digitally savvy. They are the first generation which has also been very, very inclusive, whether it is gender inclusivity, whether it is a complete acceptance of authenticity. All of this has become very, very important to Gen Z. And then we move ahead to Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha started in 2013, and it's moved ahead from smartphones and social media. These are the true AI natives. So babies born post-2013 grew up talking to Siri and Alexa as if they were their friends. Their influences also reflected. Today, every child in primary school knows how to use ChatGPT and other basic AI tools. This generation has also been dubbed as the kid-adult generation because of their extremely refined and adult-like tastes. So if you look at the Sephora Kids phenomena, right, where girls between 8 and 10 want to buy cosmetics and be well-groomed. Or if you look at, large designer companies like, Gucci and Burberry bringing out editions for little children, all of these reflect in the kind of adult behavior that we see. However, this generation also has been identified as feeling a little lonely, feeling a little cut off, right? So while they have all the AI tools, they do still crave, they're still very vulnerable for human connection. And that brings us to Gen Beta. What's in store? Kids born from 2025 to we don't know when, maybe 2050. These kids are going to be at the edge of biotechnology, AI technology, and the finest of human behavior. They're going to be so seamlessly integrated. While they are going to have no dearth of technology at their beck and call, the question really is, what would be the role of all of us as the previous generations, as teachers, as mentors, as parents? Where is it that we fit in if everything they need to know is already with them? And that is the great puzzle of parenting. I use parenting here as everybody who is a stakeholder in bringing up the next generation, right? What is going to be our role? And I think the role of parenting has always been that of a safety net, to be there for the next generation in a very quiet, calm way, but guiding them through the human aspects of growth, through the humane aspects of growth. So I recommend 7 pathways in how we can connect with the next generation. The first one being an all-heart channel of communication. I think Gen Next, whether it's Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and I'm sure Gen Beta, are going to really appreciate, and they would crave, authentic parents, where there is a very, very open channel of communication to share, right? I always tell parents, you can't wake up when your child is 16 or 17 and expect them to share their relationship woes or their career woes. It starts when they're very, very little. And an open heart channel of communication is all that we need. The second one is empathy over expectation. Did you know that emotional regulation in a human being comes in as late as 24 years of age? If that is the truth, it requires us to recalibrate how we deal with younger people and children and teens, right? So it is about empathizing, it is about being non-judgmental, it is really about putting yourself in their shoes and seeing where the thought process is coming from before we criticize or before we reach our judgments. The next one is building bonds before boundaries. Bonds and boundaries are both very important words. Children thrive with boundaries, the comfort of knowing where they can operate. But building boundaries before building the love and that relationship and the bedrock of the unconditional love is of no value. So building bonds before boundaries is critical. The next one, which is going to be very, very important, is equal parenting. We saw the beginning of this come in with the millennials, but a role of the mom and dad in raising children, right? So young girls and boys look up to their parents as role models. When you see that dads are equally involved with diaper changing and taking care of exams and preparing their kids, and you see mom equally capable of making independent choices, handling the finances of a home or elsewhere. All of these set the right examples with children and how they grow up and treat other genders and people at home and in the workplace. Shift from dopamine to duty. This is again going to be a very critical one. We are hit with dopamine every minute of the day. Whether we get our likes, how many followers we get, every time you order something on Swiggy or you go onto OTT and have a movie there, these are the quick rushes that you get throughout the day. And this is instant gratification. The true game changer is moving towards delayed gratification, where we're able to teach children to wait for something that we want. As we know, nothing in life comes instantly, whether it's instant success in our careers or our relationships. So the ability to wait for something that you want is a very, very important skill. Values over skills. It's great you teach your kid to code at 5. Can you teach your kid to cope? That's the real question. Equipping our children with skills today is a no-brainer. We're all sending our kids to classes from morning to evening. There are so many tools that we use. But what happened to the traditional values? What happens to the humaneness and the kindness and the humane sentiments that we want to build? The values need to be the rest on which skills are built. And finally, we have trusting your instincts, right? No matter how much technology seeps in, it can never replace the roles of parents, teachers, and mentors. And that is where trusting your gut and your instinct is going to be very, very critical. Finally, I would like to leave you with this thought that as the current training generations, our ikigai, and ikigai meaning our reason for existence or our purpose, our ikigai is to help them find their ikigai, to prepare them not just for marks and medals, but for love, for life, and for them to thrive in a beautifully complex world that awaits them. Thank you.